All right, we are recording. I'm going to turn my camera off.
Sure.
So thanks everybody for being here tonight. We've got Greg McWilliams from Rugby United New York joining us, and this is a program by North Carolina Youth Rugby. So thanks a lot for being here. Thanks, Greg.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. Thank you so much for having me on. I think it's important just to just share, I suppose, my brief experience and what has me here on a Zoom call with North Carolina Rugby, which I'm excited about. As you can tell by my accent, I'm from Brooklyn, New York. No, I'm from Dublin, Ireland, obviously. I see some smiles there. I grew up in Dublin. I was a school teacher in a school called St. Michael's College, and I was the senior cup team coach, the first team coach, and the director of rugby there. So we had 19 schools teams between the ages of 13 and 19. So I'd be familiar with that youth level where you're trying to implement a certain mindset and skill. I've been to 3 Rugby World Cups. I was at 2 with the Irish women's team in 2010 and 2014 in my role as attack and skills coach. And I'm still the attack coach for the USA men's national side. I went to Trinity College Dublin and UCD. I did a postgrad in education. And at the moment, I'm the head coach of Rugby United New York, and I'm still with Yale University. Yale brought me to America in the first place in 2014. So I was there as director of rugby, and now I'm the technical advisor. So I just thought I'd give you a quick introduction for those of you who have no idea. I'm really excited about this because I'm looking forward to seeing the minds of the people who are on the call. Andrew, I hope you're getting ready to do some work for me. I don't know what you're laughing about either there, Josh and Coach Kiwi. I presume you're from New Zealand.
No, Outer Banks, North Carolina. Yeah, pretty much.
Nice. All right, so look, really quickly, we're going to take you on a little bit of a journey today. I really want you to think about your own individual team, the team that you coach. I don't need to think about anything else apart from your group of players. So when we're talking about a shape, or we're talking about a selection, or talking about a drive, and a psychological approach, keep thinking about your team. We'll have some fun with it in that regard. So first and foremost, based off your player group, select your best starting 15 from 1 to 5. If you play youth rugby and it's 11, same principle. What we're trying to do is just begin to understand how we formulate our plan as a coach. So I'll give you a few minutes to put together now a quick 1 to 15. Please just be aware of your returning players. So make sure that every player that you have the ability to select is returning to your team. And be really aware of the spine of a team that a lot of pro teams would be aware of. You know, your 2, 8, 9, 10, and 15 are really the core of your team for many reasons, which we'll explore. So, you know, you want your 9 and 10 to be able to pass up both sides. You want your fullback to be pretty strong at the back defensively and also be able to pass and inject some pace. Your number 8 is that link between the forwards and the backs, and your hooker is a really impactful player who looks around and controls the front line of your attack and your team. So throw together your team. And at any stage, there'll be a few questions I'm going to throw out. You'll see it, there's a chat window. So please, throughout the Zoom, we're going to put in some questions and answers into that chat window. At any stage, if you want to talk, Amanda and Co, please do so. Okay, so I'll just give you another 30 seconds or so. Any questions so far? Okay. Okay, very good. Okay, so in your chat window, I just want to gauge the coaches here. I want you just quick question. In an 80-minute game of rugby, how long is the ball in play? So we take away all of the time the ball's been kicked out, dead time, injuries, reset scrums. On average, how long is the ball in play? If you can put your answers, please, into the chat window, that would be terrific. There's no such thing as a wrong answer. We'll just discuss afterwards. Okay, Andrew, thank you very much. Coach Kiwi, thank you. Joshua Brady, thank you. Dave Crossner, thank you. Anyone else in there? 15 minutes. Amanda, very close in 32. This is good. So straight away, you all have a pretty clear idea of, depends on the level. It does. 34, Steve Lewis, yeah. Do you reckon a pro game will be more or less ball in play than an amateur game or a collegiate game where your players haven't played as much? Depends who is playing. Okay, yeah. So on average, the ball in play in a game of rugby is around that 31 to 32 minute mark. So a lot of you came in there right around the money. That's really important, because when you're preparing your weekly plan, which you're going to look at now as you break into some skills, everything you're doing is always trying to get your players to be explosive with loads of intent for that 32 minutes. So as a coach, when you're planning, and I'm looking at some coaches here like TJ, Josh Brady, and a few people, I'm not here to tell you necessarily how to coach. You guys are good coaches. I'm just challenging our mindset towards the game of rugby and how we prepare. So if the ball is in play for that between 31 and 33 minutes, when you go down the level and you've newer players who are playing, inexperienced players, that number will be reduced. It can be anywhere between 22 minutes up to your 32 minutes based on the amount of knock-ons, the amount of scrums. So that's just an interesting anecdote as we prepare. So I asked you at the very start to put together your starting 15, and that's relevant. Each of your team is going to be different. I want you to have a look, if you don't know already, how do you want to play as a head coach? Where are your strengths? So look at that team that you selected. Do you have a good distributing 10? Do you have speed? Do you have power? Do you have both? Do you have a kicking game? Have a look down through and just kind of maybe circle those players that you feel are going to be good carriers, good passers, fast people, because that's really important. And as educators, as we look at the game of rugby, we realize everybody has a different, unique challenge that we can't all coach the same way, because all of our players are different standards and are designed differently. So whether you're a coach who looks after the fitness of your players, or whether we're looking at, for example, your skill, your warm-ups, try and be aware that your fitness plan is based on what your style or DNA is. So are you a team who's good forwards? Are you a team who likes to run the ball around? If I've got good, skillful players, I'm going to make sure that I'm teaching my players the skills to do what they're good at most often. So that's the first question. At any stage, please feel free to type a question or just speak up. What core skills are needed to play your style? So we know that everybody, of course, needs to pass the ball. Everybody needs to ruck. Everybody needs to have good footwork. But if you're looking to play a particular way with a group of players, you're trying to take them on that journey. Does anybody know what I mean by a coach who is structured versus unstructured? Anybody in there with an idea of what that means? So some teams like the New Zealanders will play a lot of unstructured rugby. Somebody like the Irish should play a lot of structured rugby. Do we know the difference between the two?
Both got Kiwi coaches.
Yeah. What do we think? What's the difference between unstructured and structured coaches?
Is it something like what ERA does in terms of game-based versus structured in terms of seeing what's in front of you? In other words, if you're a game-based program, you kind of see what's in front of you based on, so the players make the decisions versus having a coach it more structured in terms of use our exit strategy from the 22. This is what we're going to do in the 10-meter line. This is what we're going to do, in their half in the green zone.
Very good. Excellent, Andrew. I think the key thing is the best coaches in the world. I've been very, very lucky. I get to work with the likes of Wayne Smith, Scott Robertson, Scott Wisemantel, some of the best coaches in the world. And they all have very common ideas on, their belief system as a team, which makes everything so easy. Rugby is a really simple game made difficult by us, by coaches. So my goal is to try and simplify it. So take New Zealand, for example, more than likely one of the best rugby teams in the world. They are very structured in terms of where they set up and where they stand, but then they're trying to play unstructured rugby. So they're trying to play and make decisions based on what the defense is doing as opposed to preempting what the call will be. So how can I get my players to be in a really good position in order to carry if I have to, but also be able to pass if the space is wide? And all these things will become apparent as we move along. How will your team win the ball at set piece? So whether you're a female or male team, have you got the ability to win a line out? If you've got no line out jumpers, you'll have to be creative and come up with a line out strategy. Similar with the scrum, if you're light, you might have to get the ball in and out quickly. These are all just an introduction to the bit of video and bit of work you guys are going to do. Which plays suit your players? So I'm going to ask you this now. Just type it in. As a coach, you've got the ability to attack narrow and go the same way and try to pretty much beat down a defending team's door. You've got the ability to pass a lot and stretch defenses and run them a little bit more. You've got the ability to kick, and you've got the ability to do all three. So for you, wide. So Dave Crossner, for example, you're saying wide. Why are you going to be a coach who's looking to get your players to go wide?
Well, I think Andy and I coach the same high school team, the Red Hawks. We graduated all but 3 of our starters, but we have a good core coming up as well. And we tend, for whatever reason, we have tended to be very fast, but not very big. So we kind of favor the wide channels in our attack play and try to get away from the tight areas a little bit more rapidly.
And are you playing 15s at the moment? Sir. Okay. Yep. Do you have a particular attacking shape that you play once you get wide? We're still high school and everything. We've worked with 1-3-3-1 shape a bit. Far from mastering it for sure. We've played around before that with a 2-4-2. But whether we stay in a shape like that, we're far from accomplishing that, I think. And how experienced are your players that you get out to play with you?
Well, we were good last year. This year we've got sort of the spine is probably mostly going to be solid. Okay. But then we're a little less experienced in some of the other areas. We still have some speed out wide. We'll have a very good back line, I think, and we'll have some younger forwards and less size in the forwards than some other teams.
Great. And for yourself then, which is good information, if you're looking to play wide, well, then you're going to have to do a huge amount of work on the skill set of your players, being able to catch pass, staying square, which is one of the greatest things that we see even at the highest game, is just being able to stay square on the ball and catch pass is phenomenally important if you're going to be looking to play wide. Your fitness level, your players are going to have to be really good at getting big, and we're going to explore what we call back in game, because it's going to be vital to your team. And we'll have a look at what that looks like. And then what can we do as coaches to implement a mindset to our players that they understand what it is that we're trying to do collectively. We want to go wide because we're fast. We want to go wide because we've got great skills. We're going to run these teams around the park. This is how we're going to do it. And this is what we'll do as a group. And again, there might be other coaches who are on this who will play very narrow because they might have very big, unfit forwards. That's the beauty of this game. Your job is to not play, particularly if you're in a league, you want to win, you want to be successful. So you need to be smart about how you utilize the stock that you've been given. So it's great that you're at that mindset, Andrew and Josh or Dave, appreciate that. So painting a picture, I don't need to be too, the idea is, I think as a coach, you know, what can we discuss tonight that's going to make you, in my opinion, a better coach? As an attack coach and as a head coach, whenever people talked about S&C, I switched off because I felt it was something that somebody else was in charge of. And then about 8 years ago, I became really aware of what that looks like, which has helped me massively in terms of preparing my players. So for example, whether I'm coaching RUNY and I'm showing you 5 matches that we played in last year's MLR, or whether you're looking at Andrew's team that you're coaching, it's all very similar. We're playing a very similar game with similar rules. So it's very relevant. So if we look at this as a perfect picture, we can see how ball and play, 26 minutes against the Free Jacks, we were awful in that game. 33 minutes against Austin, 39 against Atlanta. And we know why we did that, because they tried to keep the ball in play. We talked to their coaching staff afterwards. They thought that we were going to be very set piece to set piece. They thought our pack was very unfit. So their idea was to have no lineouts and just kick the ball long. So we ended up having a lot of ball and play. But I think what's important is when we look down towards passes in particular, you know, and we're going to look at some match stats, you know, 69 passes against the Free Jacks, all the way up to 159 passes against Austin, and everything in between. So we only averaged in an 80-minute game 115 passes per game, which is low when you consider the game of rugby. And that goes through everything, but primarily I want you to have a look at the passes as something that's going to be interesting. Any questions at all, just please feel free to jump in. So remember, even though we're looking at RUNY's match stats, I want you to think about your team. So this is a typical data sheet. I've obviously deleted the names just so we don't embarrass anybody. But you can see the distance in meters that our players will run. And again, that's relevant for you because even though this is a professional game, we need our players to be able to, on average, you know, be able to go about 5.5 kilometers in an 80-minute game of rugby at a fast pace. So that means we've got a big role during the week to prepare our players to be able to do that in the game. They're the demands of the games. So we can look at high speed meters. That's how, and again, we've got GPS on the back of each of our players' training and match day attire, but it's irrelevant. This is as in it's very relevant for you to see this information. So we have accelerations and accelerations that we can measure, but just be aware of that 5.5 to 6,000 meters your players are going to be running in an average 80-minute game of rugby. So during the week, when you're planning, you want to make sure that you're giving your players the opportunity to work for a certain period of time at high intensity. Any questions on that? Is this making sense to people? Andrew, is this okay with you?
Yep.
Okay. I don't want to get too complicated, but I'm just going to paint the picture before we go into some video work.
Well, once you started with meters and stuff, that was already too complicated for Americans. I'm trying to do reverse engineering.
Oh, into yards, of course. This is the stats that we get given by a South African company. So this is Canada, just to show you the correlation. This is Canada against USA on the left, an international match. And it's Leinster against Saracens in a European Cup match this year. So again, we can see the ball in play, but have a look down towards the passes. 105 for Canada, 107 for USA, 174 for Leinster, and 69 from Saracens. Saracens won that game. So as coaches, what does that tell you about Saracens?
They're pretty clinical.
Yeah. Anything else?
10-man rugby.
Yeah. So you can see their kicks. So they had 21 kicks. They made 495 meters. And over here, you can see, you know, USA versus Canada, 29 versus 24 kicks in the game. This is all really important because I just want you to, again, to get an idea of how you're going to plan your week. I mightn't necessarily teach you anything fancy that you can implement from a technical point of view. Hopefully you'll learn something. but I really want you to understand how we can prepare our players to play it at fast pace for long periods. And this is another one, again, just to show you two of the games. This is higher ball in play because it's an international match. Yale University's ball in play averaged 28 minutes, which might be comparable to your level. It might even be slightly lower than the level that you guys play at. So you want your players to be able to go for 28 minutes full on, and we can create that as coaches. So again, have a look at the passes here. Wales against England. You can see similar kicking here. This is very northern hemisphere. So to Coach Kiwi's point, we're seeing a bit of 10-man rugby, and have a look here in Super Rugby, passes 176 to 172, less kicks. And that's pretty important because they would play a different style of rugby based off, to Andrew's point, your team might be fast, high skill. That's generally the way they prepare their teams in New Zealand, where Ireland, the UK, England, Wales, it's because you're playing with bad conditions. The pitches are slower, our skill set might be slightly different. So the session examples, so I'm just, before we go into a bit of a video, I'm looking at 4 very simple plans that we use with our players. And it's just to show you a few things. So first and foremost is it's showing you the distance. So you can see 3,500 meters was the distance in that training session there, but that's max velocity. 4,500 here. I'm just 1 second. 5,000 here, as you can see, repeat sprint ability. I'm hearing you, yeah. And then the bottom right there, excuse me. So you can look down through the minutes. We very rarely will stay on the field for more than 70 minutes. So a lot of our drills or a lot of our activities are 10 minutes or less, as you can see here. And we go straight into it and try and get it that's high intensity, that there's a competition, and we try and do as much as we can through the game. So rather than players coming, to our field and having everything very drill based, we go into what we feel are the demands of the game. So go straight into, 15 on 15, 10 on 10, 8 on 8, whatever we're looking to improve on. And then we're giving the players the ability to have a competition, to make it fun and to make it challenging, but then we change the rules to increase the intensity. So again, I'm just trying to get this out of the way. We have a lift on the day, we have a focus. So, this is our system attack. Same again here, we're introducing our attacking system. And again, we had our meters. So none of those sessions there, bar the Saturday session, is more than 80 minutes long, generally in around that 50 to 60 meters or minutes. The idea of that is when we go, rather than staying out in the field for 2 hours sometimes, or 2.5 hours. That's where your players can get used to doing things slowly and not getting used to pressure. So that's why now we're seeing a lot of teams using tactical periodization. It came from football, it came from Barcelona and Man City, where they were training at a higher demand than they were experiencing in the game, which meant decision making a lot easier. So we can create that as coaches. Any questions at any stage, please feel free to jump them in. I think I've already, been talking enough.
Hey, Greg, so
yeah.
During the COVID, when obviously we can't do contact, are you replicating these games with touch games and just putting rules in? That's what we tend to be doing right now in terms of
100%. But again, what you can do as a coach is, we don't always need to speak as coaches. I'd have, if it's a 10-minute game that you're playing, whether it's touch or end ball, whatever activity it is, try and get bibs, put them into 2 teams and have a half time. So you might go 4 minutes half time for a minute and then another 4 minutes. So at half time, allow the players to discuss themselves and problem solve themselves. And you're there as a coach just observing this. But if you were to go 4 minutes, quick break, 4 minutes, they get used to doing things quite quickly. So their bodies are getting used to doing things at a faster rate. And then when you're introducing skills and they get used to doing it quicker, well, then hopefully you'll see that come through in how they play. Hopefully that answered your question.
Yes.
I think the noodles are pretty good. We're seeing a lot of teams operating with the noodles. The pool noodles you can get like 10 for $20. They're long things you hold in both hands, and they're a good way of keeping the social distancing. So you mentioned earlier on, I'm going to just share another screen with you. And you share, I'm going to share this, and I'm going to maximize it for you. Okay, so we're going to do a little bit of video. Any questions before we go into video? Okay, cool. Can everybody see my screen at the moment? Okay, I'm just going to move this into full screen. Okay. So we're doing a little bit of shape. One of the most important things that we can do as rugby coaches is teach what we call getting big, which is back in game. So we're going to explore that after this little video. Don't worry about the shape. If you look here, this is an example of a 1, 3, 2, 2. So it's coming off the edge. So we're 15, 11, and 2. That's the breakdown. So we've got a hooker who's playing in the wide channel. We have this shape. A lot of you might have 1 inside 6, which is perfectly normal. And then we've got 5, 4 as a 2, and we've got 8 and 7 as another 2. Key thing, in Japan did it better than anybody. If you run a 1, 3, 2, and 2, the midfield pod can sometimes get isolated because there'll be only 2 forwards. And we want that 12 to be involved to move the ball. So whoever your outside forward here is, let's imagine we have 1, 6, and 3. If the ball goes behind those forwards and you're hitting up the middle, 3 will then come back and help out 5 and 4. So the outside clearer off the edge will be involved in that midfield pod. I know it seems quite complicated, but because you're playing the system, I felt it was important to discuss it. So as you play this through, we're going to look as to what your team can do in order to get big. So straight away, I'd recommend that as soon as your players play off the edge, all they're thinking about doing is working back off the gain line to be in an attacking position again. As coaches, you always want to be able to attack off both sides of a ruck, always. So you'll see teams now, Ireland did it very well at the weekend. When they played off the edge and you hit those forwards as wide as they can, they set up a really good blind side. New Zealand teams do it brilliantly. MLR teams are getting better and they're doing it. USA did it very well, and I've got an example. So what happened here is you can play to the forward who are in the 3, and then you're able to go back blind, or you're able to go the same way. So question to coaches now is, why would you, as an attacking team, go back blind?
Sucking players into the tram lines gives you space outside.
Okay. Anything else?
Stop a drift.
Okay.
Defense, moving across quickly.
Anything else? Look, I always say, look, I'm an attack coach, so I always talk about attack, but realistically, all attack is trying to get 2 attackers versus 1 defender, or an attacker and a half versus 1 defender, or an attacker versus half a defender because you're using your feet. It's a numbers game. If I get my players to come back from the breakdown and to set up a good attacking shape, if the defenders stay because they're worried about the threat, it's going to free up more space for your attack to go the same way. If they overfold and go around the corner and defend the open side, well, then those boys will have a field day going back blind. So again, you're able as coaches to manipulate the space and the numbers. So here's an example of USA, and you can see what it looks like from USA's point of view. So we go wide. Now watch the work rate of the players at the breakdown to get back into position. So we go off the edge, and they're now shaped to go back blind, which we do because we're trying to attack back blind. And we go back here where we decide in this case to go out the back, so we've got numbers up. Any questions on that? So we're going to go back to the original presentation, and then we're going to look at a shape and skills video. Okay, let me go back to my desktop, get away from that. Any questions, Mark and Josh, anything there?
Nope.
No, that looks great.
Yeah.
Just remember, this isn't for me, this is for you. So what's really important is that we're able to have a, good conversation. I just want to make you guys better. So please let me know if you want me to break anything down, or if there's too much information on one screen or the other. I'm going to play this again, my keynote. You should be able to see my screen. Can you see my screen okay? Are you seeing my original presentation?
Oh,
still
no.
video?
Video.
Okay.
Still see the video.
Okay, it's all right.
There we go.
Okay. Speed of ball, fast same way. Love that. Yeah, good job. So what is BIG? BIG is an acronym for back in game. So there's a lot of things that we can do, and this is where the best teams, in my opinion, are the best teams, because the game is so similar. What makes a good team great, or what makes an average team good? If we can get our players to work really hard at getting off the ground and back into an attacking position, we can do that. We can do that as coaches. We can, implement games. We can, we can generate what we'll call less than 3 second rooks in any game. So if the ball is longer than 3 seconds, you can turn it over. So your players used to playing the game fast, getting them used to getting back in game. We don't necessarily want our players to go around the corner all the time. You can go the same way, but your players can just pull back from the gain line and stay within their pod, if you want to call them that. But I wouldn't get too caught up in that. I get more caught up in the skill of how you're going to improve their execution. Having attacking shapes either side of the breakdown is essential. I'd recommend making sure that you're implementing that with your players, because again, if a team you're playing against overfolds, or they're too committed on one side, make sure your players know to go where there's less defending numbers. Look to the future and connect. So, we can do a lot of work, whether you're the S&C coach or whether you're lucky enough to have somebody who helps you. We can do a lot of work getting up off the ground, back into a position and talking and getting used to what we're seeing. It just makes everything so much easier. Whereas coaches, we can get bogged down by looking at the technical part of the pass over and over and over, but we never get a chance to see our players pass because they're always too flat or they're lazy getting into position. And that's what we're going to explore here. Make the field big to fill it. So when teams fill the field, it's not necessarily to play wide. If my attacking team fill the field, it means that the defense has to fill the field. So you're creating more space off 9, off 10, and off 13 or into the wide channel for your players. So we don't want our players to get really tight to each other and play in a small part of the field, because then the defense gets tight, very hard to go through. So let's get them to get away from each other and really work on filling the field. I think that's a really important aspect for us as coaches. And players looking to give life to the ball. Intent is a very powerful thing. And if you've got a good energy, which we can create as coaches, reducing our session times, creating intensity, creating game intensity, our players will be filled with intent. And then back in game, getting big. So before we look at some video skills, and this is where I'm going to pick away on some of the technical part, preparation is always key. So, what teams are in your league? If you're looking to really hone in on winning a championship, is the teams in your league, have they got the same coaches that they've had for the last 5 years? Have they got new coaches? Do they play a particular way? Are they consistent? So you might have videoed a game last year and 2 years ago. I guarantee you that if the coaching staff or similar coaching staff is in position, more than likely the team will play the same way. Where what we're hoping for from this discussion is, as a coach, you might actually change depending on what players you have. How do the team you're playing against defend? Are they sporadic? Do they come up hard? Are they soft? Do they fill the field? As a coach, I think our job is to understand what our players are going to be playing at the weekend, and then align and plan our sessions to give our players those pictures during the week. So If you're used to playing against a team that like to come up very hard, well, then our job as coaches is to try and replicate that during the week so your players are used to it and they know what to expect. Where are their areas of weakness? And I always say, like, we always have players who are either injured or players who aren't rugby players, but who are keen to be around the environment. Even on an iPhone, if you're able to get any video of your training and of your games, it provides brilliant feedback for your players, and everybody loves to look back on video. So don't think performance analysis is something that costs money. At Yale, for example, even though people might think we'd have a lot of money, we don't. We get very little support. So we took all of our videos from an iPhone. I had to take them back, convert them to an iMovie, and then I would upload them to a Vimeo account, because we couldn't afford Huddle. And the players were able to look at training, and that was really important. So don't be worried about the expense. And our job is to simply create a plan that begins early in the week. Key focuses: what do we need to improve as a group, and what do we need to prepare for the team we're playing against? So I've gone through that pretty quickly. Any questions before I share a skills video that we're going to discuss? Have I gone too quickly? Are we okay? Any questions?
We're going to share these slides, correct?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So again, I've been very lucky. Even in USA, I coach a lot of brand new players to the game. I'm very lucky that I coach the US Eagles, the international team, and I've been doing that for 2.5 years, and I've loved it. I coach RUNY, but I also coach a local girls' school in Connecticut that are beginners. But again, it goes back to what we can create as coaches. First things first, very often when I do skill work, and I got this from the All Blacks, whenever you do skill work, it's not necessarily a fitness work. We don't want our players to get used to slowly catching a ball, taking 4 or 5 steps, giving a pass, because in the game, they're not going to have the same level of time. So generally try and do things within that 5 meter, between the 5 meter line and the touch line, because you're dealing with less space. Your players have to catch, be nice and deep, and give the pass. I wouldn't have your players having like that big opportunity to run with the ball for a long period of time before passing, because that will really affect your players' ability under pressure. So let's have a look at this very, very simple drill. And our players are working on catching the ball early and staying square. They generally do a pretty good job of it. So all they're doing is working on getting the ball as quickly from one side to the other. So we allow our players make mistakes. We allow our players explore, because they're not going to get any better unless we challenge them. So we don't give out to individuals, we give out to the collective, and we praise individuals. So what you don't want is little Johnny or little Susan coming out training and coach saying, hey, you just dropped a pass, that's not good enough, because that player is going to maybe have a dent in confidence. Our job is to only fill our players with confidence and keep telling them what they're good at. We don't need to always focus on the weakness. So keep it consistent. You know, then I come in generally and I add a little bit more pressure. So this is the progression of a very simple drill. So we started with blue, we've gone to green, we've gone out now to the orange, so it's a little bit wider. And we do that for 4 minutes. So you're hoping that they build a good energy that is repping the demands of the game, as opposed to slow, lethargic handling drills. So again, this is similar drill. And again, if you think that I created this drill myself, you know, any coach who tells you they've done something that's never been done before is lying. I think I became a better coach when I began to not copy people and come up with my own approach. So I would have seen similar drills to this, and obviously this is important to me. We do a lot of this, teaching our players to stay square and use the ball quickly. And again, look at the small distance. So we're used to them passing quickly. We're not used to our players passing slowly when we can design that. So this is the progression. And I'll show you how that is repped. So how would you coach this? Anybody? If you were the coach who has taken your team through a 10-minute passing block using this simple lane, what would your coaching points be? There's no wrong
for
answer.
an early catch.
Okay, hands out for an early catch. Why?
Because you want to get the ball early.
Why?
It makes
Because
the pass quicker, like the follow-up pass quicker.
Nice, Mark. Yeah, and you're right, Andrew. It's really important as well, like that we ask these questions to players so they know the process. You know, we got to connect with our players in a way that is very unique. So I'm coaching you, Andrew, and I'm coaching you, Mark. And I'd be like, great stuff. Look, Mark, what are you doing there? Well, I'm trying to catch early. Like, why? So if you understand why as a player, and I know it sounds a bit corny, but if you understand why, it means then that you'll be able to replicate it better. We catch early, so we don't have to catch later. And then if we have to give a pass, we've got to bring it back on the inside to generate power. We want to catch it early so we can just bring the ball across our body. If I catch the ball deep and I want to take the ball to the line, I'll catch that ball and I'll bring it down to my hip. But we always want to get our players to catch the ball early, staying square, and just work that ball across the body. So well done, Mark. Thank you for that. Andrew, thanks for input. What else did you coach?
moving the ball across the table.
Lovely. So what do you mean by that? Because you're dead right.
So just so that your hands are out in front of you, so you're just moving across your body, so you're not bringing it in or doing a reload or doing a pendulum, which will take time away and space away.
Yeah. And, you know, a table is hopefully a well-made table is quite straight. So if we imagine a table just around our hips, you don't want your players to drop their hands below the table. You want it to move along the table. Do you remember those old Westerner movies where somebody be down the end of the bar and you're giving them a bit of whiskey and you're the barman? You're pushing it. It's a push pass. It's a punch. You're pushing it along the bar. That whiskey, you're pushing it. You're not moving it left. You're not moving it right. You're not throwing it over your shoulder. You're getting really good at pushing it along the bar. Great. Anything else?
Square hips.
Beautiful. You know, I mean, there's things I like as a skills coach, and probably the most important thing I see as a player is able to keep their hips square. You know, we see sevens players. You know, we had it with Madison Hughes a little bit, a really fantastic sevens player, and you know, they just pass a little bit differently because they're able to pass a little bit more laterally. In the 15s game, you just have less time. So he's still able to do that if you got the ball early in a wide channel. But when you're getting the ball quite tight, if you're drift passing in any way, you're just making it very easy for the defense. So we want to work really hard at keeping our hips square. Love it. Anything else?
Talking, communicating, shouting, whatever.
Brilliant. Yeah, brilliant. See, you boys already know what you're doing. So this is just like, hopefully just catching early, talking, letting the player know where you are, move the ball across the line. I think the key thing is this: for the drill, I use different colored cones. So you can see where I have the 4 blue cones. So the players will start the blue, there'll be a green, there'll be a yellow and an orange. So as a coach, they're passing, their 3s or 4s, and I'll say yellow. So they might have to move from the green all the way out to the yellow. So they're getting used to a wider pass. But the most important thing again is this drill is done by so many coaches, but done incorrectly. When they're working to go, say, from the blue or from the green to the yellow, they work out early and get square. We don't want them to drift into that space. So they get used to pulling out and attacking it square. So we can teach that with our players. So how quickly can we get set as a rugby team? Here's a really great thing I was told by Robbie Deans, of all people. I'm shouting some names there. He says that the work you do off the ball dictates what you can do on the ball. And it means the world. Again, if I'm coaching under 11s girls, I'm coaching under 16s boys, I'm coaching the Eagles, or I'm coaching RUNY, I'm telling them the same thing, is we need to get good at setting into a good position so we can see more things and make decisions collectively under less pressure. So this is something that I do a lot of as well to help keep the hips square, because they're so important for me. Is you might get flags, you might use it even with tackle bags, have a long sausage bag. Just create an avenue for your players to run straight through that avenue. It's the exact same drill. except in this case here, we're allowing the players just to rep staying square and passing before they get to the gain line. So again, we don't want our players getting used to holding the ball for too long because they'll get smashed with the ball. So they're getting used to passing early because they're going to get tackled and they stay square through the gate. So if you can do loads of this, we don't need to change the drill for our players. We need to rep the skill of the pass before we go into the game, or we go from the game and we take it away and we break off the skill. Similar to the original pass, I've now just gone in there just to add a little bit more pressure. You can see me in the middle there, and it's just getting the players used to holding me with their eyes and staying square, and then getting in a position to support the ball carrier. So, for example, this player here, we coach them that they stay square to run through the gate, but when he passes, he'll then get to my outside shoulder. Why do you think, Mark, I want this player to get to my outside shoulder?
It prevents you from, I mean, if you're running a drift defense, it freezes you and prevents you from drifting out to the support player.
Brilliant. Mark, great answer. And you got to remember as well that they're the little things that the best teams in the world do. They don't have a magic wand and do things differently than how we're doing it. They have an approach and a mindset with their players. It's very clear. If you're an attacking player now, Mark, think about one of your players. If they can pass and then get a second touch in a phase play, it's more than likely going to be a try. If it's not a try, it's going to be close to a try. So we're always trying to get our player to win the race to be either an offload, a ruck, or a passing option. So if we look at this, we can see every player should, and if not, so they should meet that side of me. So they're doing it deliberately. So they're going to beat me to the ball. So I can't get in over the ball. They're going to get into the ball first. So that's bad now. So I would have talked to Gannon more. He's drifting off that pass. I want him to pass and beat me on the outside shoulder. So if you have new players who are 14 years of age, haven't got a clue about the game of rugby, we can still teach this and they're going to be a much better player without even thinking about shape or thinking about a pattern or thinking about a 1-3-2-2 or a 2-4-2. All those things are irrelevant to your players having incredibly good, simple basics that you can rep under pressure. And then we can create cool games and get them used to doing it at speed. So in that drill, I often talk about the wave. So you want to make sure if this player is about to pass to this player here, we don't want that player level with the inside because then they have no energy on the ball. So you want a wave. So we want a wave going up and back and up and back. That's what you're looking for. It's a rhythm. So your players are coming onto the ball at pace and you're creating a flow. It's something the French teams do a lot of work on, is creating that wave. So you've always got a lovely energy on the ball. Pass to allow time. You don't want to put your support player under pressure. What is that relationship with the gain line, Mark? Josh, for example, if I'm a player, why would I want to be running towards the gain line?
You're making the defender commit to a decision.
Okay.
If he sees you standing there, he can stand as well too, and think about moving laterally.
So when would you want to receive a flat pass off a passer?
Perhaps if you're gonna attack a weak shoulder, you can take it flat and perhaps make a line break. If you see a defender turned out or in the wrong way.
Brilliant answer. So Mark, with that in mind, then why would I, as an attacking player, stand deep?
I'm trading space for time. So by standing, I have more options to get the ball, like to be a pass.
Could you imagine if North Carolina were the one group in America that were able to get your players to understand the difference between when you want to be flat and when you want to be deep and get into a good position? Before you teach them how to pass, they're going to be better rugby players. Because if they understand that they're going to have time to pass, they're not going to run up the inside support play. They're not going to get lateral and run across the field. They're going to if they're really good at these simple skills, it opens up so much of the game for them. Great answers there. But this is a drill that I do over and over again. So this is a little one that I recommend. The defense starts at the ball, not the attack. It's an L shape. So do you want me to go over this slowly?
If you could.
So you're going to start, this here is 2 against 3. So you're going to see 3 attackers here between the 15 and 2 defenders here. The 2 defenders will be facing the attackers, so it looks like an L. The first defender has the ball. When that first defender throws the ball into the first attacker, both the first defender and the second defender are live. And the idea is that the first attacker holds the first defender, the second attacker holds the second defender, and you're putting the ball away to the third person who'll go into space. Does that make sense, Mark?
Yes, sir.
So then if I can get him to pass and then follow his pass, well, then this defender's job is going to be a lot harder. Why is that?
Got 2 options.
It's already committed.
Exactly. So rather than this defender being allowed to stay inside me and wait for me to pass and drift out to the third defender, if I can get active and pass and get on the outside shoulder we discussed, now he's got to respect me on the inside. So if he over commits to the outside, I'm going to get the pass on the inside. By me running an inside line and by having my hands up, he's got to respect me. So I'm creating more space for the outside. But it's a very simple drill. And I do this again with beginners, and I do it with the best teams in the world if I could. It's just a very simple way of getting them used to, and that second defender can rush or they can sit back. Just get them used to that. And here it is in a tighter space, so we're getting used to that little bit of pressure. So you're teaching the pressure and that quick pass from the inside. So getting your eyes to target, hands to target, but under pressure. Well done there by that player. Well done by that player. So they're all doing it well. They're all getting to the outside Gannon again on the inside. That happens sometimes, hard to do. So we can create loads of these little pockets for our players and just rep them and change some of the constraints around the skill, but then just take it into a game and just play, and then come back out, work on the passing technique, back to a game, back to the pass. There's a really good example there. Do you notice that? So here's somebody, I think it's Blaine Scully. It's the next one, I think. Okay, so watch Blaine, watch what he does here. Do you see that? He blocks Ruben from getting out. So now he's not allowing Ruben to, where you have Ty Leader there who didn't commit to defender. So he stayed narrow and the defense had 2 against 2. Mark, does that make sense?
Yes.
Just something to be aware of.
How legal is continuing your run like that?
As long as you don't change your lane.
Okay.
So as long as you're going from, you can, for example, be running in a direction and then go left into contact.
Okay.
You have to run in a very, the good players can angle their run to make it look like they're supporting, but you certainly don't want to be, you can't stop either. You have to be in continuous motion. Okay. And again, look, with your players, you don't want them to get too close either, because it might just be easy just to pass. If you've got numbers up, just get the ball to the edge. Don't worry about, if you've got 4 versus 2, you don't need to worry about like engaging with the defense. Just get the ball wide. Just give your players a bit of time on the ball. So that's these for me are the key things. As coaches, we want to engage the defender using our eyes. So even just a tiny little look, we want to stay square, identify the shoulders, post pass support, and preserve the outside space. So if we're able to preserve outside space by doing good square work on the inside, geez, your team's going to be very good. So we make sure we stay square, he stays square, and that big space stays open for the final support player. I'm going to show you a couple more skills. So this is like, again, a typical skill session where you're now going into a new activity. In this case, we're attacking back and forth against the 15-meter line. I don't know what your players are like or what constraints you'll use, but in this case here, we will have maybe 4 against 2 and 2. So you're just going to go back and forth just to change the picture again. So we've gone from a technical part of the pass, we've introduced a bit of understanding around what it looks like, and then we're repping situations and you're changing. Mark, do you think you could run that with your team?
Yes, sir.
Would you find that beneficial?
The quick passing is definitely something that we could use a little bit more, and freezing defenders. I got something I work on them with right now, like trying to freeze defenders in order to create space to the outside, because we've got a lot of football players and their mindset is in the contact.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. You're on a good journey. No, there's counter approach as a coach, and hopefully that helps. Just attack the line continuously. So again, all we're doing is we're manipulating the defense. So once somebody scores, they have to throw the ball back to go forward. So again, you can do this. So the defenders will stay defending for a while, and you're just trying to win that overlap somewhere. So again, you imagine as coaches setting up a space between the outside post and the touchline, and you might go 10 meters back from the goal line. On the goal line, you could put 4 players or 5 players, and against them, you could have 7. And every time they score a try, they just pass the ball backwards behind the 10-meter to go forward. So you're allowing the players to quickly move the ball to space. It's a great drill, and you can just rep that, even for 5 minutes every single training session. Your team is going to be better.
Greg,
so
I have a quick question.
Yeah.
When you're running these drills, are you also running, like, telling defense to make sure, like, yeah, it's your job to stop this, or are they more to show the attack a body in front of them? Because sometimes I run into the thing where defense is trying to, like, I'm trying to run this drill to work on passing, but the defense is just coming up super hard, getting in front of them, and they're kind of creating more chaos, and the drill kind of falls apart.
Firstly, if you've got teams and individuals who do that, that's a good thing. I think one of the things that we do in all of our games, and if you imagine this, just think about your teams. We generally do what we call body in front. It's called BIF, B-I-F. So body in front means that you're getting out of the habit of your players standing still and touching with their hands. Because if they get into that habit and they stay stuck and they're touching using their hands, they're going to then replicate that when they play. So by using body in front, and it's not a full tackle, you're just getting body in front. I know COVID at the moment, by the way, means that's harder to do, but getting body in front means you're teaching your defender how to work their feet. So if the attacker steps, they're stepping with the attacker as opposed to lunging and touching them with the fingernail. So try to avoid playing touch.
Yeah, I'm not a huge fan of it.
Yeah.
I think it creates bad habits.
And there's one really simple thing. And I hope I'm not going off the point a little bit. If you happen to be a head coach on this call and you have assistant coaches, think about how you're using the assistant coaches. And what I mean by that is empower your assistant coach to have a specific role. So I'd always have a defense coach with me, always. So when I'm coaching hands or I'm coaching attack, all his job is coaching the defense. So we're working always both sides of the ball, always. And the important thing for that is, let's imagine I'm the head coach and I'm an assistant coach, and I talk to my players after an activity and I say my piece. The assistant coach feels then I turn around to him or her and he or she comes on and says their bit there because they feel they have to. Where if that assistant coach was able to say, okay, look, great stuff by the attack, hey, the defense, what are we working on there? What do we do well? What do we need to improve? You'll also have the ability of giving your assistant coach, you're empowering them to do the team's defense. And you as a head coach can make sure they're doing the right things. And of course, you're the person who decides how you want to defend. But if you have the ability to have assistant coaches, always have somebody, if you're a defense coach, get them to do the attack. It makes a huge difference. Never, ever, ever go into a drill, as you call it, and only coach one side of the ball. Try and always coach both. Utilize the time that we have.
Perfect.
It'll make your attack defender. So TJ, are you a head coach or an assistant coach?
Head coach.
Have you got assistant coaches?
I've got one. Yeah, he's our pack coach, and I'm also the back coach.
Okay, so he's your pack coach. So you're the head coach, look after the backs. He's your assistant coach, who looks after the forwards.
Yep.
Who looks after your defense?
It's kind of a collective thing.
Yeah,
so
you see,
we're currently looking for a defensive coach right now.
Yeah, I just think sometimes you want your players to be really clear. I could coach the attack a certain way, and my assistant coach might coach a different way, and you're going to just complicate things with your players. So trust that. Right. If you're the person who's employing this assistant coach, even if they're a volunteer and they're doing it for free, just say, look, mate, I'm going to do all the teams attack and the breakdown. You're going to do the pack, and you're going to do the defense. And you know, look, I'm a support. If you need me to give you defensive stuff to help your assistant coach, yeah. But I think that gives you a chance to concentrate on the attack, and it also gives that coach a sense of purpose to be the person who's looking after your team's defense. And remember, as head coach, it sits on you. So you need to make sure that you're also helping him or her to become a better defender or defensive coach. But I'd recommend having that pack guy when you're doing hands, not to just be assisting the comms you're giving in terms of the hands. I'd have him looking on the other side of the ball.
Perfect. Thank you.
Or her. And this is just a different game. Again, what we're looking at here is patience and transition. So this is one phase turnover, body in front. So the players here, if they get touched or get body in front, biff, it's going to be a turnover. They can't even have one. So what they're trying to do is slowly work their way into seeing where the space is. So you'll see they're having a look. They're trying to identify space. Remember, if they get touched, it's going to be a turnover. So the hope is that they're, you know, trapping the defensive team into an area, which they do here. Ruben doesn't work hard, overfolds, and then Sean sees that gap and he's gone. And that there is the idea of the drill, just to be patient. We're coming to the end. I know we're slightly over the hour.
Just to stop on that last one, Greg, that one strikes me a little more sevensy than I'd be having if I'm coaching the 15 game. Mm-hmm. Realize we're at high school. We're lucky to have a program that starts at kindergarten, so we do sometimes get experienced players in the high school, but you often don't. And now I've got them sort of backing up and going sideways and that sort of stuff, which we fight like crazy to get them to go forward, you know. So,
but again, I think as a coach, you're able to set the standard and say, hey, look, this is what we're working on. It's not necessarily. I mean, this is something I'd suggest you do with your backs, for example, or you might do your inside backs. So what they're actually working at doing is identifying a defender and trying to trap them in. So, you know, it's just a different way of doing the same thing. I mean, it might, again, you know, that's not really what tonight's all about. You might look at that and go, that's absolutely pointless. That's absolutely fine. Just take bits that are relevant to your group. So no problem. Yeah, some people might find that shite. I don't do that often, but it's still something I do. I do this all the time, every single training session. So this here now is multi-ball touch or body in front. So that's me here. This is a USA training. Unfortunately, we have S&C coaches who are, you know, that's a learning for me. He shouldn't have been there. But the idea is at any stage, the attacking team, you're going to throw a second ball in at any stage. And the idea is that you don't just want the active players to be aware of what's happening. You want people working off the ball and identifying what's happening. So we can create that. So I do this again every day. So watch now. Body in front, so it's a little bit ball specific. But watch me at the back now. I'll just throw a ball into the opposition team. So straight away now, you're setting up a different look for your players. So now they're attacking. So players have to, it can go to either the defending or attacking team. In a real simple game, we're working through a shape. And there's another ball coming in now, you'll see. So the same to a different way. So again, you're giving them different looks that is game related. So they generate a ball that's quite fast, and there's another ball that's been thrown in, the attacker taking it. So it's not like just your best players who are going to do everything. You know, we don't allow players hide in games. We want everybody to be active. So I really would recommend this as something you should do all the time. And then these are more backline shapes. Again, never have them starting. You know, you're trying to replicate the game. So have players coming around the corner and defenses coming around the corner. Look how soft our defense is. Jeez, I killed us when I got to the World Cup. We trained too softly. That's what happens sometimes, right? So do a couple of push-ups, you know, play a whistle and just create a couple of 2-on-1s or 2+1 versus 2+1 defense. So just adding an extra player from the inside, like a blind winger, as you can see, he'll go out the back. So they're all the same thing. You're just contextualizing it into the game at your players. So you can do this off the left-hand side, as you're seeing. This is a similar drill again, just showing you that, you know, I do these drills a lot. So your players are getting used to where the space is and getting the ball to the space. Now remember, before they've got to this level, they've gone through the handling. They've started at a low level. They've increased the intensity. They've done the L-shaped drill where you're bringing the defense and attack. And all of a sudden we go into this, which is more game-like. So they've had a chance to work on their pass, and now they have a chance to put it into a game. So they know what it looks like and why they're working on what they're doing. And then you just go off the other side, so your players come around the corner like they will in a game. And you've got, so don't just get your players standing always in a lovely position, get them to come around the corner. So you're repping, again, the demands of the game and what they're going to face in the game.
Greg, I have a question. At the high school level, do you think it's more important, instead of doing in more of a structure play, just for them to understand that in a group of 4, like in a diamond, they can work a punch and judy or a pass out the back? So if you can get them to understand that if they can get cohesive in a unit, whether it's, you know, 2 forwards, 2 backs, or 3 forwards, 1 back, that they have that opportunity to do, you know, a tip pass, a ball at the back, so that way you can play either direction, but you're within that unit or whatever. So it's about connecting with.
It just depends on the experience of your group. I mean, Leinster are one of the best club teams in the world at the moment. You know, maybe in the top 5, certainly. Like, they won 25 games in a row. Their whole attacking structures is built off hitting somebody who's got energy coming onto the ball. So because that's their mindset, they're all really aware of it. So they're always like just looking for people with energy to come onto the ball. If you have the ability to get your players into a pretty good position, that's obviously world class. I just think as players, if we can teach them how to pass, how to defend, what it looks like, have a bit of fun, when it comes into games, then it's much easier for them to execute. Where if we're too shape obsessive and we think it's really important to have you stand here and you've got to be there 3 meters away from him and you've got to be there. And as coaches, we might rep them 100 times in training. They look terrific. And then we wonder why they fail in the game, because you never start in those positions in a game. You start on the ground coming up off a ruck, or you start off the edge coming around the corner, and you have to get into shape. So, you know, it's such an incredible opportunity we all have as coaches to go on just an unbelievable exploration with your players. Biggest thing to do, I think, is to ask loads of questions and just gauge where your players are. So Mark and Josh are doing a handling drill against you, Andrew, and Mark takes the ball to the line. You drift off him as a defender, and he passes to the support player, and the support player gets smashed, for example. You're in a position to say, right, Mark, what did you do there? And he said, well, I passed to my support player. You can say, right, but what was the defense doing? And he might go, geez, I wasn't even thinking about what the defender is doing. Or he might be able to say, do you know what? The defender drifted out, so I actually should have dummied and I should have ran forward where the space was. That's you now coaching through the understanding, and it's allowing your players to really understand why they're doing what they're doing. I'll conclude. I'll conclude at one point before I take any questions. I'm a school teacher, 13 years. I taught geology and business studies in the classroom as well as being a rugby coach before I became full-time professional in rugby coaching. And it's very easy for me to draw up a playbook and have a player learn that playbook. So what does blue mean? It's playing off 9. What does 10 mean? Or what does black mean? Playing off 10. What does punch mean? What does jab mean? You can come up with whatever terms you want. That's all well and good. But if I can coach understanding, so they understand why they're calling a blue, they understand why they're calling a flood, that is a completely different level of coaching and education. And that's when your players will begin to all of a sudden just go to a level where they don't need your input as much as a coach because they're beginning to understand themselves. And that's when you start hitting the eureka moment. So I'm not suggesting you throw the ball in and allow your players play what they see. That is false. That is not the game of rugby. Anybody, I believe, who coaches quite that way, I think is wrong. I think you have to have a structure that your players can get into, and then it's up to you to allow them to then just play what they see. But they can't just play what they see without having support players around them. So you can help them get support players around them. You know, like, I mean, I can talk for hours, but the final thing I'm going to say is this. What is the difference between a line out where your 12 is going to take the ball up the middle, your 13 might support the 12, the tail man in the line out might support the 12, so there's the first ruck, the breakdown in the middle, and you have a group of forwards going around the corner with the 10 in behind. You might have some forwards who'll stay. You might have some forward, whatever your attacking structure is. But the difference in attack, team 1, there's no animation amongst any player bar the people who are carrying. So your 12 is animated from the get-go. Where I think what we can do as coaches, which requires zero talent, is if I'm a 15 or if I'm an open wing, if I'm the 13, I can look like I'm actively involved before the ball comes in, which means like the defense are going, hang on, 15 is going to be involved. That alone will allow your 12 a bit more time and a bit more chance to go forward. Where if my 15's looking up to the sky and their hands are down by the side, it's much easier to defend that. Think about it this way. If I play around the corner and I'm using 3 forwards, and I know it's going to that middle forward, the difference between a pod coming around the corner where that middle forward has got his hands up and the other 2 guys or girls are just walking beside them getting ready to ruck, versus 3 that have their hands up looking like they're getting the ball but it's hitting the middle one, is night and day, because you're going to sit more defenders down. So if I can get all 15 of my players to always have the hands up ready to work on the ball, your defense is going to struggle to see where the ball is coming. And again, that'll free up much more space for your players. So, you know, my goal is just to talk about a part of my brain and how I go about formulating my week. But certainly for you as coaches, I think we can kill ourselves too often in too much technical and tactical information, where what sits above that is, for me, where coaching is so beautiful, which is getting our players to work incredibly hard, incredibly explosive for shorter periods of time in training, so they get used to their body being tired and they have to make a decision. So that's number 1. It's so valuable to do that as coaches. And then number 2, keep it really simple. Because we think about rugby all the time, because for whatever reason, that's the way we were put together. And that's why I'm looking at you guys on a Monday night on a call here when you could be watching, you know, an episode of your favorite TV show. You're here because you love it and you want to be good. So I think we just got such a good opportunity, and our job is to create that energy and that real, you know, it drives intent, and that's where your teams, I believe, are going to be successful. Don't worry about the technical. Get them to play with energy. Get them to train with energy, and you know, ask loads of questions. Has anybody got any questions there?
Just 2 comments. Back home, we call it play what's in front of you. You
Yeah.
play what you see. I'm actually a big believer in that, and I understand what your logic is, but it's also if you've got all the skills. If you go into a game with a certain mindset and they change the mindset, you can be screwed if you can't play what's in front of you. And that's the way it's seen back home more than play what you see, I think. So it's a different way of interpreting the phrasing. You've got all the tools and then you can play what's in front of you. The second one I heard a couple of years ago, and I hate to say this from a soccer coach because that just sucks. But this guy said that kids should use their shoulders a lot more. And basically that just means look to your left and look to your right. And that's a really important thing for kids to learn is that, don't just look in front of you, look around, see like you said, see the field, the big field, but using your shoulders is a very simple analogy, left and right, simple as that. Like
you're I can't stress enough. And if I didn't get my point across, I'm delighted that you brought that up because it means I didn't get my point across enough. Very lucky to have been with the Chiefs and Auckland, two professional sides in New Zealand, and I went over there expecting to see this big magic wand that I was going to be able to bring back and wave at my players and we're going to become brilliant. And their big thing, both teams, was getting into shape as quickly as possible. And to your point then, Coach Kiwi, their belief is if they can get into a good position early, then they play what's in front of them. Where if they're slow getting into a good shape, well, then they'll never be able to play what's in front of them because they won't be in a position to play what's in front of them. So that was probably to your point, that was my biggest learning from how they approach it in New Zealand is the importance of shape, which allows you to then play what is in front of you, what you see, what you scan and see. So very good point, and I'm glad that you brought that up to confirm it. Any other questions?
Everybody good?
Yeah, Greg, it was great. It was really fun. I think we've heard a lot of this before, but very dynamic, and the way you explain it is empowering. So excited to be back coaching rugby and appreciate the help that you gave us tonight.
Dave, just do me a favor. Whenever you're playing with your players, it's easy to do. Just don't allow a ruck go longer than 3 seconds. Just get them used to having to play the ball at speed, whether you're a scrum half or whether you're whoever's there, just pop the ball to the 9 and play at speed. If they're going into 5, 6, 7 second breakdowns, you're goosed. Yeah. So everything less than 3 seconds and you'll play at a good tempo and a good energy.
Excellent.
Okay.
And Greg, you're going to be sending this recording out, correct?
Amanda is, I hope.
Yep, it'll go out from me.
Perfect.
And you'll edit me out, I presume, Amanda. Thank you.
I don't know what you just said, Kiwi. You got to slow down for me, buddy.
Yeah, thanks.
I really didn't catch it.
That's fine.
Thank you, Amanda, for putting it together. I appreciate it.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you guys for showing up. It's been so much fun to see everybody. I miss everybody. So, yep.
Thanks for
so
having
much,
me on,
Greg.
guys. I really appreciate it. Thanks for allowing me to talk rugby. If I can help out in any other way, Amanda has my details. Please feel free to reach out. Always happy to help. And I really want to wish you all the best in your journey. It's wonderful. We're very lucky people. So all the best down there. Enjoy the heat while I freeze up here.
Be careful what you wish for. We're gonna get your number now. We'll have it on the hot phone.
Man, anytime. You'll be surprised. Awesome. Anytime. Awesome. I'll put you on I'll block you though. If you're more than 10 during more than 10 times in one day.
You won't be the first.
Greg,
Thanks, Dave.
Greg, do you still pick up your Yale email? I've got that one from a few years ago.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Probably the best thing, Josh, is if there's an area of the game that you feel you'd like some reading material, I literally have whatever you're looking for done out in a similar form that I've just presented tonight. So I'm more than happy to share individually. No
That's going to be a long winter, so I'm ready.
Good. Happy to help and wishing you all well. Thanks, Amanda. Thanks everybody.
So much.
Thank you, Amanda.
Bye, everybody.
Nice to meet you, Mark. Take care, guys.
Bye.